What is cracking, everyone? Hope we are doing well. Recap for yesterday. I took this buy in here. So I actually took the sell, which was a break even. And then due to an inefficient range, I was able to take a buy in here with a smart money trap entry model targeting that inefficient range. That'll be broken down in really high detail in premium. So if you're after that, link at the top of the description. If not, I'll break down in basic detail for you guys for free. That'll be up tomorrow. Now, in terms of coming in today, so we're up 3% for the week. It has been a very interesting week, obviously, with all the world events. So I'm not going to be too aggressive coming into today, especially with where we are in the market. So EU did exactly what we wanted to see yesterday. Created new ranges. I actually see this as internally bullish. So for me, I don't necessarily want to sell. I actually want to buy. I'm just not really seeing much of an area to do so. So you've got this break with a retest. We did not then push up. So this is kind of my last 15-minute push here. And I'm happy to use that because we obviously had internal break, mitigation of extreme and push. If anything, we can kind of use that as our last range, which I'm quite happy to do. And then off of that, we've just realistically kind of just induced low. Okay, so off of that inducement low, we now want to see what happens. I do like targeting all of this liquidity, and like I said yesterday, I do want to come and target here. So I would like to continue to buy. Just understand we are bearish. And on the 4 hour, yes, we have reacted off of this extreme, which did mitigate an extreme. We have had a major inducement. It does make sense to buy. I'm just not seeing a lot to kind of work off of this yet. So that's kind of more or less an internal break. It hasn't confirmed itself. This could be a good inducement low. So all I'll be looking for is another inducement in this direction to trade with this. So whether that's inducement like that to then come into here and induce low and then take that type of trade targeting that liquidity, I'm happy to do. If we sell further off in that direction, I actually don't see a way to kind of get in. I don't really see that as anything other than trend line. So I see buys here. If that doesn't happen, the market will just kind of flush out. And I would say sell off and come to this low. I don't really see much else to kind of work off with that. We have our original break, which took liquidity, which mitigated a point, pushed away. I just want to continue with that. Like I said yesterday, complex pullbacks are the hardest. So this is kind of the only thing I'll be looking at coming into today, targeting that liquidity and then hitting full take profit here. Okay, so something like that. All I'm looking for is that second inducement and trade away from that second inducement. So we've got one inducement. I just need consecutive ones giving me buys and control. Now GU played out to a T. As you can see, I've left up the drawings, played out to a T. There was no entries on GU yesterday. We have now completed this structure cycle entirely, in my opinion, coming into this area. So realistically, buyers are kind of off the table on GU. Okay, so this is where that 50-50 nature comes in. We have made equal lows with the extreme. If we kind of read internally what we've got take a liquidity to new range, retest, and then push. So we're working in more or less this leg here. Okay, so internally that way and externally bearish, like I said. I would expect this area to kind of be that smart money trap. Now we have induced into the mitigation down and kind of pushing away from this. I just don't see a way to buy. I believe sells make more sense at the moment anyway. As you can see, this area ended up being a smart money trap, which is what we would have wanted. And taking an entry like this with better timing would have been very clean. Obviously, just wasn't the case. So we've got inducement into mitigation, internal break of structure cycle, and push out this way, which then led to the break of that structure here. We now only have this internal break and retest. So what I would be expecting is something like this, or for this to be a smart money trap of some sort, but we just don't have the liquidity I need personally to take a trade and to sell. Okay, so I think buys make the most sense given that I don't have anything to sell off of. So I'm happy to use that. Okay, like I said, we've come into this extreme here. We're working between the two ranges. This just holds so much more in this range. We completed the internal structure cycle here. like so, and then we completed the internal structure cycle here. And like I said yesterday, I just want to repeat this leg and literally just get something like that. So sells are the go. I just don't see a way into it. So I'm going to buy into the sell. What we've kind of got is more or less, like I said, this break here. But that's the liquidity that held in this range. I'm just more or less using these inducements. So I'm happy to buy until we get into this range. So if we can stay out of this range here before we buy, I'm happy to do it. So we've got inducement. I'm happy to have inducement, buy, and then once we hit this area, I believe sells will be the go, targeting this liquidity, clear complex pullback, selling away from that. It's just a very, very 50-50 nature with what EU's provided. So EU, I more or less see buyers coming into today because it hasn't reacted off of anything that holds any structure, whereas G, I more or less see sells. So we'll see how that goes. I don't see any of these points as demand to suppliers or anything interesting. I more just see this as break and retest liquidity that I want to come and target. Realistically, coming to target this. So that'll be my invalidation for buyers. Up until that point, I'm happy to buy. I'm just understanding that once we come into this area, we can just flush this direction. Really, really clear inducement into a previous inducement area, then induced into the mitigation. So something like that with the trend line above does make sense, especially off the major inducement to the downside. If we look on the 4 hour and we kind of look at the 4 hour candles, it's failing to break and it's mitigated this point. So we're just getting really, really good bearish structure. Sells just make a lot more sense. I would just like to wait until we kind of get to this area. In terms of selling in another way, we could get, that internal break like we have here, create another internal break, leave a huge imbalance, and we could look to sell through that. But that's something I'll walk through on the live today with the group. That's a much harder approach. So we're going to keep it simple with that type of outlook to begin with, and then we will go and move from there. Now, AU has reacted off of this 15-minute point. It did induce into the mitigation of that as well. So complete sellers activity. We've then pushed down and we've taken the last point because we did have that internal break, internal retest, built up, push away. We've then mitigated the last point, taking that retest. So if it is going to go bullish, this is where it would go from. I would need this to be a smart money trap, which it probably looks like it's doing now. We've had a clear push, clear break and retest, mitigation of point. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of just pushed out from this area here. But we've got a huge imbalance with this random news week, so I'm not going to be too aggressive. Like I said, very interesting week. Complex pullbacks are the hardest trade to take, so I'm not going to be too aggressive with those type of things. What I'm going to have a look at next, we did induce this random supply to demand. Like I said, we had break, area of retest, which kind of built up, take of that retest and push. We've now taken that internal low here, which could be enough to push up. We have not created the structure cycle in this direction, which is quite shitty, but we did take really small retest here. So what I'd be looking for, smart money trap, buy through this, continue to the upside, and then sell from this area here, creating that trend line to the bottom and replicating this leg like so. So that's what I want to see, like that. I'm quite happy to see that from here, like that. And that's what I want to see. Just understand we have medium induced to the downside, so we'll have to see how that reacts. But sells are the go. On the DXY, we did major induce yesterday, like I said, and we're starting to get that sell-off. On the 15-minute, we've now come into this area of decisional that's pushed up. We've now started to push up. We've got break with this take of liquidity and push, break with this retest. We've now taken that retest. It could now sell off of this, and this would align with the options we had on EU, GU, AU to now buy in the opposite direction. So sells here make a lot of sense. We'll obviously see what that does. If it creates a trap here and pushes through here, I wouldn't be surprised if it did the same like that. Continued selling off, taking this area of decisional. I would imagine taking this low and then looking to buy back up, targeting that liquidity. Or we could just flush to the downside and kind of had that retracement given the current liquidity. But I would say with how aggressive we are, I wouldn't be surprised if we just kind of kept pushing to the upside, especially on the daily. We've had that really, really good candle rejection, but it's struggling and it's failing to push lower. It's creating a lot of 50-50 nature in the market. I would suggest we're going to push back up just after we take some internal liquidity, which I imagine will be possibly this low, possibly get something like that, targeting that trend line. Quite simple like that. So sells coming into the day, buys on every other pair, and then we'll reevaluate and see how we go there. I'll be going live with the premium tonight, so we'll be on there. First link in the description. If not, you've got the free Telegram, free Discord also below as well. I'm up 3% for the week personally with a break even and that 1 to 3 yesterday. So I'll be breaking that down and going over the week at the end of the week. Let's finish this week off strong. Understand the current market conditions. Don't be too aggressive and don't be silly with it. And yeah, let's have a good Thursday.